Good morning. Today on Spotlight, my end of the year roundtable discussion with Channel 7 colleagues Ross Jones, Andrea Isom, Heather Catallo, and Jim Kirshner for the very best here at Channel 7 Action News. It's a lively discussion, and I hope you stay with us. It's Sunday, December the 29th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. And welcome to Spotlight, our final show of 2019, and 2020 is right around the corner. Welcome to all of you. Hope you had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, and we're getting ready for a new year. Any big plans? Just down the line, staying in town, getting out of town?
How about you guys?
Taking my daughter on a birthday trip.
Nice. Eating and enjoying everything.
Yeah, we're going to all
bringing
try
in
to get
2020.
But in moderation, right?
But in moderation.
Okay. All
I don't know,
right.
but this was the highlight of my holiday season. Right here. So these are the plans.
That's not a
So
good
grateful.
sign at all. Let me ask you guys. You've all been in this business for a long period of time. If you had to stack this year up against some of the others, what's your gut feeling in terms of how did it feel? Did it feel like it was an exceptionally busy news year? With all this going on in Washington and Lansing, is that trickling down to what you do on a day-to-day basis? Jim?
You want me to go first? I was going to say
Why
ladies
not?
first.
Why not?
My year has been consumed with Detroit, the Motor City, the Big Three, the United Auto Workers Union. It's been a tumultuous year for those entities. You know, we had the Big Three contracts,
Right.
40-day strike at General Motors, corruption inside the UAW, General Motors suing Fiat Chrysler over that.
And from January all the way until December, you were consumed with UAW-related stories.
Absolutely, off and on, but it really picked up steam this fall, September on.
Yeah, and it's rare that there's a single story that threads its way through an entire 365 days a year.
Indeed.
All right, we'll drill down on that more in a little bit. Heather?
I would just say I feel like it's been relentless. I mean, whether it was national stories, local stories, I feel like we've all just done a lot this year, and there's just been so much to keep up on, and certain stories from the investigative unit that we've had that we really had, like you said, a thread that just continued through the whole year. So we've just all been working hard and trying to stay on top of everything, but relentless would be the word.
Right. Andrea?
Yeah, good word. And you know, with what everybody does here, we're all so involved with each other. I mean, like, I've learned so much from everybody here about things that I didn't think that I didn't know about. You know, as far as Hoffa, you know, with the movie Irishman.
Right.
Heather did that story that I was just so intrigued by.
Did the
And
story
it's-
for you.
Yeah, thank you.
She had questions.
Yeah, because there was
So
so much.
let's do another one.
And it was all Hollywood taking a big license with what really happened.
Yeah, totally. But I learned so much more from my colleagues that I thought I needed to know. And it's just so refreshing to be with these guys. And I think also with all the things that were relentless and just sometimes tiresome and hard to explain to people in layman's terms, we did a good job of, filling that out with some people that are really important, some lighthearted stories about people in our community that are doing creative and courageous things. People right here in our newsroom as also. And then, the Lighten It Up with Restaurant Report Card, which is really, really fun. Every week we get to, showcase restaurants, talk about what the health department does day in and day out.
And we're going to talk about the restaurant report card in a little bit.
Yeah.
There. Ross,
Yeah.
what did this year feel like?
I think maybe Heather feels the same way. I feel like when you do investigative reporting, regardless of what year it is, the names change from year to year, but the stories are the same. Whether you're doing stories about police or politicians or hospitals or crooked businesses, at the end of the day, the themes are sadly very reminiscent from year to year. And I feel like, while this year was certainly a busy one and a relentless one, it was also a familiar one.
Do the two of you or any of you feel like, I think you hit a real theme there, people always seem to think they can get away with something.
And usually they do.
And that's not the
Until
vast,
they don't, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the vast number of people in our society, but there's always that group out there that feels, oh, I can cheat the system, I can beat the system, until they run into you guys, and then all of a sudden it's like, I've gotten exposed.
Yeah, and not to toot our collective horn here, but I guess a little bit, there are fewer people like us doing these kinds of things. I was talking to somebody yesterday in Wayne County who said, God, the stuff that's going on now, man, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it should have been a big story. And like, there's nobody even coming to our meetings now. there's just fewer reporters. So you're absolutely right. There's a sense that you can get away with it, and a lot of people do get away with it.
Yeah, but thank heavens that we're here doing the job, protecting the First Amendment and exposing information that needs to be exposed to protect the greater society.
Yes, that is so essential, especially in this day and age. I feel like journalism has been under attack a little bit. And
Have you all felt that?
Oh, absolutely.
yes.
100%.
No question.
Yes. No, I definitely think even local politicians have taken cues from the president in a way, and how they
Fake
treat
news.
fake news and how they treat us. And we can take it. It's just sort of that overarching attack on credibility that is damaging on the whole, when really our mission is to give light, to expose the truth, and to hold people accountable when they need to be held accountable, not in a nasty way like happens on social media, but in a measured, researched, well thought out way of getting to the truth and getting to the bottom of things, to make sure that taxpayer dollars are not being wasted or people aren't being abused or whatever the situation may be. It's really, really important to support good local journalism.
All right, we're going to take a little break here, pause for the cause. We'll come back, and I want to drill down on some of the specific stories that you all worked on that you're really proud of, and find out why those stories were important to our society as a whole. We'll be right back. Heather, you worked on the guardianship. Is that the one that you're perhaps the proudest of what you did this year, or was most important?
I think so. I feel like this year, this is something I've been covering really since 2016 as far as the probate courts, but I feel like for whatever reason this year, so many aspects of that story really came together with the attention that it got from the Supreme Court, from the Attorney General, and from the courts across the state. We have 32,000, more than 32,000 people under guardianship in this state. And there are certainly good guardians out there, but there's also situations where maybe things need to be improved, and there needs to be some more accountability. And the legislature is about to start introducing some bills probably in January to change some of the laws, and there definitely needs to be oversight. The Attorney General took the unprecedented step of actually intervening in the Macomb County case, where we had some very extraordinarily high fees in some of those cases. And then once we did the Macomb case, there was just a terrible situation with a grandmother in Detroit, and she reached out to me, and she did not have the means to hire an attorney. She'd been put under guardianship. She felt unnecessarily. And once we started really asking questions and talking to folks in the system, fortunately, she was freed from guardianship, which has never happened in any of our reportings so far. So that was pretty extraordinary. And it's just nice that the state is paying attention, and there's hopefully more oversight coming.
Ross, what are you proudest of you did this year?
Oh, that's a tough one to answer. I mean, I think the story that really shocked me the most, and kind of continues to shock me because I'm still reporting it through, is what we did, and we found out about how the state looks into psychiatric patients who mysteriously die either in a hospital or just after they get released. LARA is what it's called, Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. I know Heather has done a lot of reporting on it. It basically licenses and regulates most everything: barbers, cosmetologists, marijuana dispensaries, and hospitals. And we found out about a very major hospital in Detroit called Stonecrest, where a lot of patients go. It's the only hospital in the city, private hospital in the city for psychic patients, where patients were going there, being released, and very quickly after either dying themselves or committing a heinous crime. And did some digging, find out that every time this happens, these hospitals are supposed to file a report with the state. It goes to LARA. They're supposed to review it, look into it. Well, we came to find out they weren't really doing anything with these reports. They got them, they read them, and no matter how heinous of a description was on these pieces of paper, whether it be a murder that was committed, a suicide that took place, even in some cases, suicides that happened in these hospitals, weren't being investigated by the state. And the state's answer, once we finally got it from them, was, well, we don't think that's our responsibility. We think it could be police, it could be the medical examiner, we don't really think it's ours. Which doesn't really make any sense at all when you think about it, because they have no jurisdiction over these hospitals. The state does. And when these deaths are happening, if the state's not looking into them, you're essentially just asking the hospitals to police themselves.
You've got the Michigan legislature looking at this. There'll probably be some legislation coming out.
Yeah, so the good news is before that story even aired, actually, we heard from Democrats and Republicans in both chambers of the houses in Michigan who said we need to fix this. And right now they're going about it, I think, in two different ways. We'll see if they have kind of a meeting in the middle.
Andrea Isom, your restaurant report card has become so popular. People love it because, one, everybody likes to eat.
Yes.
We're really into going out to various restaurants, and you want to know that you're going to a place where it's good for your health as well.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it's the way you do it, that even when you catch somebody that has violations, there's kind of love involved with how you treat them and realize that this is still their business and there's room to grow.
Absolutely. I mean, you know what? When Rhonda assigned me, who's our boss, assigned me this
Rhonda LaBelle.
segment, yes, I said, I think this could be really cool. I looked at some other stations that do it, and I said I'm going to do it different. And not to say they're doing it wrong, but I wanted to add my touch to it because I want people to know that this isn't about shutting you down. This isn't about destroying your business. This is about showcasing who you are in the community. And there's room for improvement, but you know what? You've got some love to give. So many people around here do so much for their neighborhoods, and those things need to be highlighted too. And there's nothing wrong with high five and hugs when when you get everything all fixed up.
You put a lot of personality into the
and
store.
I think people always ask me, why don't they run away? It's because I'm approaching you as we're neighbors. We're friends, we're community, we all live here together. A lot of the places that I go to, I've been before, and they've had violations, but I feel comfortable going back. And as you see, I feel comfortable eating. And it's been taken care of, and everybody feels good on both sides. Even when they had violations, there have been places that said, thank you so much for pointing them out, showing my staff that this is serious. Sometimes it takes, someone else to do one of these to let you know that this is serious business. It's not easy to run a restaurant. I could never do it. Hands off. I mean, seriously, hats off, hands up to all those people that do it, because it is really tough work.
I'm going to let Jim tell the story.
Let me tell you
first.
how effective this is.
Okay, JK.
We were up outside of the GM Orient Assembly Plant this fall. We were parked off the side of the road. We had parked up on the grass past the curb. It was muddy. Our live truck sank into the mud. We couldn't get out. Just as we were about to call the station and say, send us a tow truck, some guy drives by in this big four-wheeler. He sees that it's us. He pulls over and stops, and he says, I'm here to help you. I have a strap. I'm going to pull you out of this. And the reason I'm doing it is because I was on Andrea's restaurant report card, and she made me look great. You bet.
So that means you got to take Andrea and her husband out to dinner, and you got to pay.
Deal.
I concur.
Deal.
We need to take a little break. As soon as we come back, I'll pick up with Jim. I want to talk about all the things that he did with the UAW this year. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back to the Spotlight. You can tell from our faces we probably had a little more fun in the break than we actually had on the show. But some of that you can't find out.
Mom's the word.
Real quick question, Andrea, before I jump over to Jim.
Yes.
When you walk into a restaurant on your own with your husband and say, we're just going to dinner, what's the reaction?
Well, I'll tell you, I was at Pickles and Rye with my husband.
Oh, yeah, great place.
I love
Not
that
too far
place.
from where I live.
And so it's so awesome. So the owner came out. He's like, I wanted to deliver the food myself, present it to you. And my wife, he said his wife always tells him, if you don't make sure everything's right, I'm going to call Andrea Isom up here on you. So it's really fun, and people take it in stride, and I just love it. This community is awesome, and they have embraced this segment with open arms, violations or not. And I'll tell you, we've got some really good people around here doing the right thing, and when they know they're doing wrong, they just they pick it up and keep it moving. So it's good.
All
Real
right,
fun.
very good.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Yes,
Everybody
absolutely.
does. UAW, from the talks, which are so important, to the corruption, to a new leader taking over one tough job. Your reaction, how important was this story this year?
Well, I think that people will look at 2019 in the auto industry and here in Metro Detroit as big as, if not bigger than, the 08-09 recession, when General Motors and then Chrysler went into bankruptcy and had to get the government bailout. Not to mention the strikes, but you talk about the corruption within the UAW and rooting out the corruption. You've had 13 people charged.
Were you surprised they got the talks done under the mist
They
of
had
all
to.
that corruption?
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge distraction. You had the president resign in the middle of it, Gary Jones, but they had to get through it because the big three needed these contracts to move on. But this is far from over. This is a huge cloud over the UAW right now. You mentioned the new
More
UAW
people going
president.
to jail?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You have Rory Gamble, who's a Metro Detroit guy. He's from Dearborn. He came up through the Ford organization within the UAW.
First African-American president
absolutely.
of the UAW
Yep.
after all these years. Yeah.
He has his eye on the ball. He's already put in place a lot of internal controls. There are more to go, but they're looking at Uncle Sam right now. And we had the U.S. Attorney speak earlier this month that more charges are coming and everything is on the table, were his words, that they could come in with a civil RICO action and have some sort of federal oversight of the UAW down the road, not immediately, but down the road. Because look at the crimes that have been committed. You've had 13 people charged, 11 taking plea deals, but it's bribery, it's extortion, it's embezzlement, it's money laundering, it's wire fraud. Those are all the RICO predicates.
Yeah. What has this done to the image of one of the largest and historically most important unions in the history of this country?
They have to fix it. They have to fix
Going
the image.
into a big political year in which you
Absolutely.
can bet that's going to come up on some debates.
I think so. Fortunately, again, the three contracts are resolved, so those aren't going to be hanging in the balance. But yeah, we haven't heard the end of this. And I talked to a lot of the rank and file members, especially during the GM strike. You know, they didn't like this. They said, I had a couple of them say specifically, the leaders who were corrupt and who have pled guilty were in it for themselves. They weren't in it for
And
us.
so many times we've seen a difference between the leadership of an organization and the rank and file members.
And this was definitely that case.
Heather and Ross, you both have dealt with Matt Snyder, who's very involved in prosecuting all of this. He's relatively new to the position here, but has really taken the bull by the horn, right?
Absolutely. He's not new to being a prosecutor. He
No,
was
no,
with
no,
the
but I mean-
Attorney General's office for a long
Correct.
time, so he definitely knows how to put a case together. And he's been very open with the press as well, which I think is helpful in cases like this where it does affect so many people. And having that messaging from the top, I think, is effective.
The comments he made recently about RICO and the oversight took a lot of people by surprise, but I think it's to be expected with him going forward.
All right, need to sneak another little break in here. We'll come right back for a final segment with my colleagues. Stay with us. Andrea,
Yeah.
Derek Davis, one of our employees, you did a story on
Mm-hmm.
him. You also did a story about an organization that mentors fathers as
Oh my
well.
gosh.
Those are
Awesome.
the ones that really touched you.
Yeah, and I love to be able to do those stories because, you know, it's the people you don't know sometimes that you need to know. And Derek, you know, he works a different shift than most of us. And like we all know each other. We're a tight group because we see each other all the time. But
Sure.
there's people that come and go. You know their face, maybe their name. But Derek's one of those people who works the morning show. He's a awesome engineer, but he's a mentor when he's not working here. And we had a meeting, Mike called a meeting, a station meeting, and we were all just talking about each other, just getting to know each other in different ways. And he talked about something he does outside of work called Emmy, Encourage Me I'm Young, this mentoring program. And we're like, you know what? We need to focus on something positive about somebody that we know that's taking his time when he's, you know, sleep deprived, working the morning show. But instead of that, you know, and instead of a nap, he's going to mentor young men. And instead of showing success on the field and the basketball court, which you can be successful, obviously, he's showing young men, primarily young black men, that there's so many other ways to measure success. And he's showing them his life and what a wonderful career and how blessed he's been to do what he's doing. And he's showing them there's so many things you can do other than the things that people call a superstar. You can be a superstar in your own right in anything you put your mind to and your passion. And Derek is just that person.
Our roads are still bad. We didn't get the 45-cent gas tax. That promise certainly has not been fulfilled yet. We're still trying to fool with mass transit in this region. We at least have 3 of the counties and the city of Detroit sort of banding together, trying a different sort of approach. And we've got all kind of stuff going on in Washington as well as Lansing. What do you all see for 2020 as we're going ahead in a presidential election that probably will be like none that we've ever seen before.
Much more partisanship, unfortunately. Have we seen any movement toward the middle? I mean, we finally got a budget deal.
I haven't seen it.
For Lansing, right?
Right.
Right here
we
toward
saw,
the end of
we
the
did
year.
see it on auto insurance reform, but
Baby steps.
we didn't see it on a lot of other stuff.
Right, right. And with this presidential election year, I think, my prediction, it's only going to get worse. The country is divided.
What do you all think?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of political ads shortly.
Yes.
We've already started seeing some of those. I'm really interested to see, I mean, the Whitmer and the legislature and the dance that they tried to do over the last couple of months, which did not work out for anybody, but certainly didn't work out for the governor. That's going to be interesting to see. I mean, she's not new at politics, but I don't think this budget negotiation went at all how she thought it would. And it's going to be a steep learning curve because the roads have not gotten any better. We are no closer to where we needed to be. We're in the same position we were 5 years ago. So I think 2020 will be very fascinating to see how that develops.
Yeah, Heather, you touched on it earlier. The pressure on us to be really fair, really balanced, I think is probably at an all-time high. It's not something that we didn't do before. We all came in to this business wanting to go to this profession, adhering to all of that, but I think we're all viewing as though we have bullseyes on our back, and we have to be really careful about what we do because of this very partisan atmosphere out here.
Yes, and I think that people, unfortunately, have started to look at a lot of what we do from a very extreme lens at times, and it would just be, I guess my Christmas and New Year's wish would be, take a step back, whether it's something you're seeing on television or just talking with your neighbors, and just take a breath and understand that, everybody has a perspective, but when it comes to reporting, we certainly all bend over backwards to make sure we are thorough, fair, correct, and we do everything we can to make sure we're telling the truth and exposing what we need to expose. But just know that everybody's really trying really hard.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year to all of you. Appreciate all of you coming in.
Of course.
We should say that we have so many talented people in our newsroom. I wish I could have gotten them all here at one time, but there are too many to do that.
You got the most talented people.
I'm not touching on that one. But let me say, in 2020, we'll work some of my other colleagues into the picture here. Happy New Year to all of you.
Same to you,
Back
sweetie.
at you.
And finally today, we encourage you to watch this.
Turned into a mission for Metro Detroiters.
We wanted to unify, inspire, and act.
Taking these good vibes and the progress and continuing to move forward.
Shining the light on the good in our community.
Here we are, 10 years later, as a station to have had a hand in watching that rebirth.
And we've done that, and we are so proud of it.
Detroit 2020, a decade of vision. Watch New Year's Eve at 4 and New Year's Day at 7, only on 7.
Don't forget, I'm Chuck Stokes. Good day.